Hello, and welcome back to the Rethinking Intelligence podcast. I am your host, Cindy Dickman, and I am very excited to once again have Kari Van Bebber back with us as a guest. She was on a couple months ago, and I wanted to have her back on to have a very different conversation, or an additional conversation from what we had before. Kari is currently a marriage and family therapist with a specialization in the gifted child. And welcome, Kari.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I think I said this before, I always feel like we have some of the best conversations when we just get together and we just shoot it and let it come. And so, even though we have a little bit of structure in our head for today, I do look forward to hearing where this takes us today.
Yes, me too.
So, a little bit about where we do want to go with today's conversation, and it's one that we often don't talk about, but the populations that Kari and I work with, it comes up all the time. Would you not agree?
So of course, it absolutely does.
And that topic is actually speaking to the gifted parents of gifted kids. And I say the gifted parents of different kids. I know we've said this before, but you can't really have gifted kids unless someone in the parenting pool is gifted themselves. And where we see this breakdown is oftentimes they have never been identified, or they have a misconception about what gifted is or high intelligence, and they have never owned that brain for themselves. And so when they become parents, they parent as a neurotypical parent should parent, like what all the parenting books say, the podcast, what other people say how they should parent. And it just creates a lot of disconnect and a lot of challenges that we see. And just before we begin, Kari works mainly with the children and the parents, even though she works the whole age range. I work with the parents, but 18 plus. And so we kind of work, our specializations is in different, even though we do work with the whole range. So we are going to be bringing different aspects into this conversation.
It's the lifespan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Kari, where would you feel is the appropriate place to start with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think things that you've touched on before, and then kind of somewhat of your premise of your podcast here, right, is the reimagining of intelligence. So like we talked about, we're saying gifted because that's a label that we all understand, and it's to a certain degree, right? But I think that's where you start, right? Is understanding that giftedness means different things to different people. And so for parents, they may not have ever, even recognized themselves as gifted. So this might be a new term, this idea of the intellectually minded person having a different type of brain is a new concept, right? And so anytime there's a new concept, that can be, especially as a parent, that can be a little overwhelming because now you have to fit everything into this construct.
Yes.
And so I think that's the place to start, right? Is what does it mean to you as a parent? Do you have any identification with it? Do you and what, even if you personally don't have identification with it, like that you never thought you were gifted, what are your feelings around the word, right? What does it mean to you? And building this self-awareness around that piece is like the foundation. But that, like you said, it's not something that we always talk about, and it's not something in every parenting book that's out there, right? There's not a piece that says, hey, if you see these things, this might be what's going on, right? That's not part of the mainstream parenting advice. And so it's new and but really needed for a lot more people than they realize.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you started there. It's like the definition of what it actually means to you, because that is kind of the base of like where we're going to go with this conversation. It's really hard to be able to parent one of these beautiful kids if you can't go back in your own brain and see the needs and the challenges that maybe you experienced growing up that you wished an adult or someone in authority would have come in and helped you with. And And so it's like coming from that place of seeing yourself first as the foundation is so, so, so important when parenting this population.
Right, right. I mean, self-awareness is huge when it comes to parenting in general. Another thing that we don't all get a lesson in before we were parents,
Absolutely.
and then all of a sudden we're going, wait a minute, you know, you see things in your children that you reflect you or your partner, and but there's just so many pieces there of it. It's like putting this little mirror in front of you, and suddenly you're forced to face some things about yourself that you never stopped to think about or didn't, just didn't see before. I didn't recognize myself as a gifted person when I was a child, but now looking back, understanding giftedness in the way that I understand it now has helped me understand myself as a child. And
Absolutely.
so that piece can be really beautiful and
Mm,
healing and transformative, because if you can gain that knowledge now as a parent and be open to that and what you see in that, and then you reflect back, even if you didn't get what you needed as a child, you can look at your little inner child and say, like, I wish I would have had this,
yes.
right? And that doesn't have to mean that we blame our parents, or, many parents do the best that they could with, just like we're doing now. We're doing the best that we can with what we have in front of us, but understanding yourself now with the new knowledge that we have, and all the information that's out there, and reflecting back can really help you look at your children a different way and see. Oh, I mean, we can get into, I don't know, into all the reasons why, but like, sensitivities is one of them, right? I mean, if we can understand the deep, deep sensitivities of how an intellectual brain experiences the world, and then we can reflect back on, oh my goodness, I had those sensitivities, and we didn't know why, and maybe my parent handled it wonderfully, maybe my parent didn't. How do I want to handle it now, understanding it through this lens?
What are some of those things that you see in clients um, that when you ask them or propose to them that you may be gifted? What are some of the common reasons for their not willing to acknowledge at that moment that they may be part of this population? What are some of the things you hear?
Well, a giftedness is often associated with achievement, right?
Mhm.
So if a parent, a grown adult is like, "Oh, no, no, no. I was a behavior problem in school. Like I couldn't pay attention. I didn't get straight A's. I was sent to the principal's office. I wasn't, whatever." They automatically think like, "No, no, no, then that's not me." Right? So that's one school of thought there of that you get, is like, that can't be because right. Another thing you see often is the women don't recognize it in themselves, and they'll look to their husband and say, well,
They see it in them, right? Oh, everything that you're saying, I see it in them. And I'm like, but what about yourself?
Yep. So they'll go, well, her dad's gifted, or his dad was in the gifted programs. And I'm like,
Yes,
okay. And so then there's that. Then there's the just any sort of label. I'm not into it. I don't want to be put in a category. That means some people think it's elitist and trying to say you're better than other people.
absolutely.
And so there's that
Mhm.
resistance. Those are some of the main ones. I'm sure I'll think of more.
I think it's interesting because since you do work like more with the parents, mine are the actual clients. And when I start talking with them, they find them their way to me, not knowing kind of what my specialization is. They come to me for other things. And then as we're talking, I bring it up and it's like I don't think I've ever had someone be like, "Oh yeah, that's me," like right off the bat. It is like this slow tiptoeing in of, and it usually is exactly what you're saying. It's like, and I've had people say, but I'm not an Einstein. Like that's at a complete, yeah, I was good in school. Things came easy to me, but man, no, I was not at that level.
Right.
And so it's not even the achievement, it's this level that
Yes, that too.
gifted is at the give me 160, 170 plus
Yes.
in IQ, and anything up until that is just like you just kind of lucked out.
Absolutely. That's so true. That's so true, that it's like I couldn't possibly be that because I'm not at that level. It's so the expectation is so high of what gifted, or being intellectually minded means. And so, but I think that's also part of, I know it's part of my discovery is understanding, oh, there's so many people in the world that are gifted, or, gifted. I mean, it's like, it's so, you don't have to be Einstein. You don't have to know all the answers to Jeopardy. You don't have to be, going to Harvard or all these things that a society. That's why I said from the beginning that the definition and the meaning around it has such a big play in this. If I approach a family with no labels and no idea that that's kind of where we're going with this, and we just talk about characteristics and type of person and how you experience the world, I get a lot of like, oh yeah, yeah, yes, I do that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, I'm always thinking faster than everyone else. Or, oh no, I'm super reflective and I'm always trying to, I'm super creative. Or my memory and my directional sense are just spot on. Or, oh, I have so many sensitivities. And then you go, oh, well, that's actually kind of showing this type of brain. And if I stay away from the word gifted for as long as possible,
Absolutely.
you have a complete shared experience if it is, a similar type brain type. um and you get there, and then you can come to the idea of like, well, this actually is, really shows a lot of signs of that you're,
Yeah.
smart and that your brain is very capable, and that falls in the gifted category. And then people tend to be a little more like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that all those things had to do with this. And I said, yeah, most people don't. It's okay. This is a learning for, that I've discovered later in life too. And so that approach makes a big difference. But yeah, that's understanding those pieces, definitely.
A couple instances of trying to tiptoe in and realizing that it doesn't matter when you can drop that word anytime and it's still not going to land well. And so you drop it and then you leave and then you just keep finding those points of connection, of like, I understand you from this high sensitivity
Yeah.
or this intense interest that you have. Let's just talk about that. We'll just go at it. Like, I understand you and you don't need to know that I understand
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
at
That's,
this level, right?
and also I just remembered, I just thought of this. There also can be a pressure that comes with it. So if, say, you have maybe somebody has actually known that they were, very capable minded and, gifted, if you will, and the word potential can be like this just weight that is,
Yes.
and so if people have been brought up with this, like, but you have a lot of potential, but you have a lot of potential, and they haven't executed that in some preformed, preconceived way of what they were supposed to do, according to their parents or society or whatever, then there's that resistance too, especially if you're coming from parents, back to this topic of parents and parenting their children, and they want to protect their kids from that same framework, pressure, label. Like, okay, then you get, hold on, we're not doing this to my kids. This is like, yes, I understand. That's totally understandable. And then, that's why adapting to the family and working with it, and like the labels don't matter.
Mhm.
All this is just, it's like the way I work, and I know you too, it's understanding your experience as a gifted brain
Absolutely.
versus being gifted and what that means that you're going to do. It's people are coming to us, they're seeking something, right? And so if that's emotional regulation or intellectual stimulation or school needs, whatever it is, then the basis, so we go back to the root of like, well, then let's help you understand yourself, let's help you understand your children, and we want to get to the core of what's happening, and helping people understand that understanding this piece of who you are is huge for then figuring out how to support and understand each other.
I would like to talk a little bit about our own different paths of how we came to understand this about ourselves as parents, especially. Um, and mine really did come from becoming a parent and having this child that was so intense, and and never being like you, Carrie, we were talking, neither of us tested into the gifted program. We were both told no.
Right.
We were young. So you just take that and you're like, oh, okay, okay. It didn't mean much, right? But then when you become a parent to one of these wonderful kids, you feel completely at a loss because all of the information that's coming in to tell me how to parent, I was told that I wasn't parenting properly. I wasn't disciplining the way that I should have. I should be doing timeouts. I should be doing charts. And anything that I tried just failed miserably. And it does reflect back on you as a parent, right? And we can feel like a lot of criticism is coming at us with no solutions of how to approach this. It was through my kids that I realized, when I started understanding it, that I started realizing, oh, this was me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then realizing just for myself that the parenting that I received did not help, and it actually hurt the way that I am wired. And through that understanding, like you were just saying, Carrie, it's like when you begin to understand that and to put it into context of, it's no fault to our parents, they just didn't have the knowledge the same way I started out not having the knowledge, right? But then we can reflect, and there was so many times so far in my parenting journey that I would stop and ask myself, what would I have needed if I was feeling this way? Rather than saying, stop, you're like, it's just like too much right now. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, who was I? And there was a reason I was feeling this intensely about something. And what did I need? What did I need someone to come in and do for me, or say to me, or just understand? It's been completely through my kids, and then through my marriage. That's a completely different conversation, right?
Sure.
And actually, we should have a third conversation about gifted marriages, because that's a whole other
Yeah,
set. So
relationships in general. Yeah.
absolutely, knowing how to navigate them. But yeah, so I came to the gifted, my understanding, and continue to through my kids. What was it like for you?
Well, I actually started working for a gifted school. Well, I guess I have to back up a little bit. So I was a school counselor, and that is actually where I started identifying some gifted kids and their needs, and but in a place that didn't really see that necessarily. And so I was the one saying, wait a minute, there's something more happening here. And then through my work and discovery, it was like, oh my goodness, they're gifted. Wait, I need to know more about this. Kind of trickled there. And I was understanding, seeing the difference in kids. 10 months after I had my son, I started working for a gifted school. And so it was sort of all happening at one time, right? I was in this environment where I was with all gifted kids, and I was learning about being all the aspects of giftedness and the differences and best practices, while having this little baby and who was very intense in his own ways. So it was a parallel journey, and I do think that very fortunate enough to have that and have the learning. And I was working with so many kids of all ages, kindergarten through 8th grade, while my son was growing. And so it definitely has made me a much better parent. So that self-discovery through this job, and also getting to know my child all at one time, was really like, wow, this this is all makes so much sense. And then I could respond to him and understand him so much better than I would have just 5 years earlier.
Mm,
So yeah, so it was all kind of at the same time. And something that's really important, I think, for parents is to have a community of like-minded parents, right? Because we say gifted kids need like-minded peers. Well, it's the same for parents, because of this idea of the mainstreaming parenting, all those parenting books that everybody knows about. They're not necessarily addressing, I mean, they're mostly not addressing this population specifically. And a lot of the strategies don't work, right? And so I mean, parenting is an incredibly vulnerable space, right? And we do tend to kind of weigh ourselves or measure ourselves from how our
Mhm.
kids are doing at some level. And so, and that's true for all of us. And then you have a gifted brain that is also sensitive and extra reflective and extra, perceptive. That gifted parent with all these pieces who's likely on the successful route, right, have been able to accomplish things in their life, figure things out in their life. And then all of a sudden, the knowledge they're getting about parenting doesn't fit their children. And it's like, whoa, what am I
Yeah,
supposed
there's nothing to measure it to. And
to?
then you just feel like a complete and utter failure
Yeah,
because nothing that you're trying is working.
yeah. And you want the best for them. And then other parents are kind of like, just try this and just try that. And I remember being with a family as when our kids were little, and my child's just running around it's like, let's go out to eat. I'm like, I don't, and he's just like running, needs to move, picking up everything, looking at everything, asking all these questions, and the other kid's just sitting in the stroller, like just there, happy as can be, and that's fine, and different personalities and such too, of course, temperaments, but you start to go, oh my goodness, like, what do I need to do? Or you put that expectation on yourself that, like, I need to get my 2-year-old to sit down, and that's just not realistic. And so, touching on a few things there, right? But the community that you need of like-minded, understanding that the parenting strategies that are mainstream are not going to necessarily fit your child, and that doesn't mean it's your fault or their fault. It means they need something different, and being open and willing to try different things and not measure yourself against people that don't match you.
Absolutely. That was incredibly um, important and this was before I understood our boys, but we did. I mean, we did unfortunately lose some relationships because it was seen that we weren't parenting with enough discipline. Slowly, you start bringing people to you who have very similar kids, and then you can just go and let them be completely crazy, intense together, and there is that judgment isn't there. And I don't know that you had this experience, but when I did get together with those families, they had already begun to feel the judgment of others. And so like when their kids were being incredibly intense, they'd be, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And they would try to do something about it. And how nice that you can be. And it's like, "Hey, no, don't worry. Like, I get it. Our kids are the same." Did you have those experiences as well?
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, and I think it's true for most populations of just the like-minded groups that we get ourselves in, right? And so, and that could just be parenting style in general. And so that's why there's lots of different moms groups, or there's lots,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's
And we
like,
need to have like gifted parent groups, you know?
yeah, I mean, because that's or how, whatever we want to call it, that makes it comfortable for people, right? But yeah,
Absolutely.
understanding that piece of the level of sensitivities. And I mean, there's so many things that I with my son, because of the high sensitivities and high perception of the world, where he would not be as flexible as, say, an average child. And I know we share this with our kids, so just the casual things that parents will suggest, like, well, let's just this, or I'll just take him, and I'm like, oh no, that's not going to work. He's not going to just be taken. Like, this is going to be
Yep.
a whole process of
He's
prep
not going to
and
go in your car
yeah,
because he's never been in your car.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how well he knows you. You could be like his aunt or uncle, but if he's never been in your car or going to the destination where you're going, it's just like, it's too much.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
just too much.
that is that understanding, right?
Mm,
Of like really understanding
mm,
how the brain works and what's going on. So if you understand their sensitivities and where it's coming from and intensities, and then
absolutely.
then you work with that, but I mean, going back to the parenting piece, understanding your own sensitivities too, right? And that's where the understanding your own giftedness comes in, because you're going to, as most any parent, right, we're triggered by the interactions between ourselves and our child. And we have our own level of anxieties, need for prep for new situations or whatever it is. And so balancing those two things together, right? You have to be able to navigate that. And in order to navigate, if you want it to be successfully or a little more peacefully navigated, then you want to have some awareness of where you are too in your journey and what, I know that noise is, I'm sensitive to noise. And so I can't expect myself as a parent to take my child to a very noisy place and also stay as regulated as I would like to be, right? And
Yeah.
so now I'm dysregulated. He's just regulated, and we're all overwhelmed. And then that doesn't go so great, right? It doesn't go as smoothly as you would like. So that's that where all those things come together, right? To be able to understand.
I always flash back to when I was young because because these things weren't understood in myself.
Mhm.
And now it's like I look back and you talk about that understanding that we can bring to our parenting is when our boys started exhibiting sensory sensitivities, it made me go back and think about when I was young. And I remember I used to be involved in this like 4-H. I don't know if anyone, it was back east,
Yeah.
but I would have to get in a neighbor's car and she would blare this music that I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
And she'd be singing at the top of her lungs. We'd be like bouncing around in the back seat with kids that I didn't really know that well. And these moments came back to me, and it was just like I began to understand why I was such an anxious child that then led to a very anxious adult. And I could never understand why, because it's like life is good. Like, why, like, oh, why am I feeling cramped? Why is my nervous system on high all the time? And then I began to understand and see like I was chronically put in situations that now I understand were just an overload to my system, and no one could really help me navigate that or help calm it down, so my system just stayed in high all the time.
Right.
To your point, how do you bring that to being a parent? Now I understand when I start getting irritable, and I just I notice myself not where I want to be as a parent. I'm like, oh, I need to go put my loops in. That's what
Yeah.
they're just like sound dampening earplugs I put in. It immediately makes me feel better. If I didn't understand even those like small little pieces, um, it it changes how I parent and how I show up. And also for my boys, if they're being crazy, the intensity is huge on an emotional level. That's kind of where we see it. I will say, hey, go put your loops in. And it immediately their system calms down and they can regulate, and it's like such a simple thing, but it makes all the difference for myself and how I show up.
Yeah, for sure. It does. And you wouldn't if you didn't know that about
About
yourself.
my
So how we conceptualize those things about ourselves makes a difference too, right? So if we don't understand our own needs and then how to meet our needs,
Absolutely.
then we aren't able to regulate and be there for our children like we want. And then we're also not able to model that to them, right? Yeah,
Like recognizing in myself and verbally telling my kids, hey, I feel like I'm a little overstimulated right now.
right.
Let me go do something about that, and then I will put myself back in this situation.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's the modeling, right?
Right. So, I mean, that's a huge part of parenting. I mean, kids will do what you do. I mean, they're not going to do so much what you say. They are going to do what you do. And so it is, and we're not perfect. And the goal isn't to never be uncomfortable, never be emotional, never be upset, never lose your cool. The
Yeah.
goal is to be able to recognize when that's happened, take care of yourself, model, communicate about it, work towards growth, of course, repair when we need to. But I mean, how wonderful if you can put the work in to see yourself and not take it as I'm just a bad parent because I can't do these things. I just don't know how to do this. This is just what it is. They just have to listen to me.
Yes.
You can go down that route if and people do when they're scared or they don't have the skills, right, to be able to handle what they might see when they look at themselves. And that's why there's people like us and lots of therapists out there. But,
Absolutely.
it's you can lean into that and realize like what a wonderful thing it can be if you can bring your own self-awareness to the situation, because it will be good for you and your family, how you see that. And if you just think, well, I'm too scared to look at myself, I can't deal with this. Well, that kind of follows along the generations at times, right? And or it can. Um, or you can look at yourself and understand it and then be a beautiful model of just living your life, like knowing yourself, accepting yourself, handling yourself. That's what your kids will see, right? I do the same thing. Okay, hold on. We need to turn this off. Like, I'm just feeling like there's,
Your
noise.
head's gonna
Like,
explode.
yeah, like I just, hold on. I can't do all of these things at once. Now you've asked me 10 things. So let me reflect back to you what you've asked me to do in the last 10 minutes, and I'm starting to feel like I want to do these things for you and I'm going to do these things for you. And I'm not really sure, that's it's impossible to do it in the amount of time, but I'm not sure that you're recognizing that you're doing it. So can we pause for a second? I'm a little overwhelmed. You have some needs. Like, let's figure out where to start. And then they learn communication and regulation and and prioritizing. I mean, there's so many opportunities for these teachable moments, right?
It can only happen. And it's like, I don't think it can be overstated enough. And this is something I know. I think we're probably both equally passionate about. I'm probably just more loud about it. But it really is it's taking responsibility for ourselves rather than blaming the parents, blaming the school system, blaming this person that they didn't get me, they didn't understand me, they didn't help me. It's like, okay, that may all be true, but it comes back to you have to do this yourself. You have to want to be a parent, first of all, that understands your kids. You have to be the person that wants to be better. As you were talking, there was this whole idea about gifted that hit me a little differently. I feel that sometimes we can look at gifted or diagnoses or labels as something fundamentally wrong that does need to be fixed. And that was actually what started this whole parenting conversation. We have the parents come to us and essentially say, I want you to fix my kid. I want you, through your understanding, fix them.
Right.
Because and so I think it's worthy of time to discuss this a little bit of this thought that we have that there is something wrong. And even when we're talking about looking at ourselves and being willing to go in and look at all of this and why it may be hard, I think it may be hard for a lot of people because we approach it from the fact that there is something wrong. Mm. And we don't like to get in and get messy in our hands and things when there is something wrong.
Yeah, I have this thought of we start from this it's wrong point
Yes.
because it's to the point where something is wrong. Something's not working in life, right?
Something's not working. Yes. It's not, I think wrong needs to be taken
Yeah.
completely out of the equation, right? Out of our vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So something's not working. Let's say we were able to start this journey of self-understanding, and there was like the automatic parenting book that came to us when, when
Oh,
they were infants.
yes.
And we had this understanding and this approach before something wasn't working, right? And we don't get to that place of like where we're seeking help. I mean, help needs something's wrong. Doesn't need to mean that, but it means something's not working. So we want to shift, right? Something needs to change. And so, yes, it's overwhelming to be a parent. And so it comes to this place and you've tried all these different things and things aren't working. And so you're like, please, please just help me fix this. Like what? And then you're trying to back them up a little bit, right? To say, well, wait, it's not, this is just a different lens that we want to look at it through, right? If
Absolutely.
we can see it as it's too much, or we can understand, wow, there's this gift of like high sensitivity and perception, and there's that that's the capacity for that can bring amazing things in this world. So a couple things in there too, I think, are that, well, most people are uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So I should
Absolutely.
say,
No skills are really taught
yeah,
surrounding it. That's a huge piece of our work,
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. So their intolerance, right, of discomfort. And so when something's happening in front of you and it's not going super smoothly and such, and sometimes it's much bigger than, as these simplified conversations, but then we want to not be uncomfortable. And so we're running from this discomfort, and that means like make all this stop. When really we want to learn why it's happening and how to be there next to them and support them on their path forward, right? And that doesn't always look like this preconceived path that we had in our mind too. So I think that's a really big piece also is, let's just say, the school journey in general, which I think we've touched upon this in the past too, is just this idea that I'm, I say, okay, so I went to public school, and there were only, I was in a tiny town, and so I went to this school and then this school and then that school, and that just was what it was. And there was no question about what the other options were, right? And so in my mind, raising a child, that's
Yes,
what's going to happen.
absolutely.
You're just going to go to school and everything's going to be what it is. And well, then I don't have the experience, the personal experience or the training or such to now navigate a path that doesn't look like that. And it's not the image that I had in my mind of what
Isn't that,
children
yes.
were going to have. Like, so we have this image, right? Whether it's get married, have 3 children, the house. I mean, it could be different for everyone, right? But that's just sort of the quintessential thing. And then when it doesn't start unfolding that way,
It's hard.
but it's hard on so many levels, right? And so we don't know where to go with that, and we don't even realize, and that's where the self-awareness comes back, is we don't even realize that part of our struggle with our child is that we're still trying to fit them into that path, because
Yes.
we were not even fully aware of like bringing that into full consciousness, that is an image we have in our mind that we're trying to create.
Hmm.
Then we don't even know that we're trying to fight for it. And then we
Absolutely.
don't know that we're experiencing loss because it's not happening. So again, that's the work of the parent. What happens when we feel anxious? We want
Hmm.
to control. Well, if things
Absolutely.
aren't working with our kids, we start to feel anxious, therefore we start to control. And that's where, it's the, well, just do it. Just stop being so much. Fix
Absolutely.
my child. This has to stop. I need that, because I need all these things to happen so I can be okay. But pause, come back. I'm going to do my own work. What is this image that I have in my mind? Is it coming? Is it not coming? Do I need to process some loss around that? Am I willing to let go of it? Why am I holding on so tightly to it? What's important to me, right? So that's your own emotional processing as a parent to help you go down a different path. With particularly these gifted kids often need a
Absolutely.
different path.
Hmm.
Um, but nobody's telling you that.
I think there's a second portion to not just having this image in your head of what and all the different emotions that come with trying to get that or achieve that. I would also add that you can be super reflective. And it's that being super reflective of what you were like as a kid that you just did what everyone said.
Mhm.
You were the good person. So if they would say, you need to go and you need to do this at school, well, of course, yes, I'll
Yes,
go and I'll do that at school. And then, well, you need to go to college, and these are this path. You would do so well in this path. Okay, I'll go to college and I'll do well in this path. That I think it's not just the image that you have in your head, but it's actually how you were as a child. You were just agreeable.
sure. Mhm.
You just did it. And so you are bringing that forward, like now piggybacking on what you said, you are now bringing how you behaved,
Right.
how you chose to go through life, as a young person. You're now bringing that forward that your kids will do the same. And it may have come at a cost to you because your own intensities and mine weren't understood, but you do expect that, okay, it's uncomfortable for you, just push through. Like I did it. I just pushed through. I did just fine. I got the grades. I'm doing just fine in life. You can do it too.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of the other side of the coin of what you were talking about. It's just like, well, I did it, and if I suffered and I did it okay and it all worked out fine for me, look at me, then that is the expectation that we put on the kids.
I think that's a core belief, right? And that is again that work as a parent. I mean, parents recognize if that's the principle or strategy approach that you're coming from, that's your core belief that I'm just gonna you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. I was fine. And I do
Absolutely.
hear that a lot too. I
You
absolutely.
know, and people aren't going to understand you in life. Don't expect things to be handed to you. Don't expect the school to understand you. Don't expect, just keep holding it all. Just keep
Yeah,
holding it all. It's okay.
yeah.
You'll
And
do
it
just
comes from too sometimes they don't know what else to do, right?
fine. No other skills, right? Or ways to look at it.
Right. And that fear of sometimes recognizing maybe if you looked at what truly maybe there's possibly some hurt there. Like if you opened yourself up to admitting that maybe it was hard for you to just be pushed forward, maybe actually like it hurt. And I think there's a lot of things that gifted kids need that would be best for them. Could they survive without them? Of course, we're survivors, right? That's what we're wired for. That's what the human, system is wired to do, is survive. So, yes, we can push through. And also, if there are certain sets of parenting strategies that
Yes.
work better for a gifted child, just like there's certain sets of parenting
Mm,
strategies that work best for lots of different pieces, right? I mean, you can go from other diagnoses to personality styles to temperament to and gifted is just one of those pieces, right, that should be honored and looked at and seen and understood, that a different path forward for them
mm.
could be with a lot less resistance, and difficulty if you allow yourself to do that with them.
We've talked about the sensitivities, the needs, the challenges, that it still can be kind of viewed one-dimensionally. And part of that self-reflection, it isn't you will, let's just say you're like, yes, I'm going to reflect, I'm going to work on myself, I'm going to understand myself, and then I'll be able to understand my child. And I'm going to go to someone like Cindy or Kari, or I'm going to find some gifted resources. And I'm going to go all in and understand from the gifted perspective. I think the one thing that I would offer, and you would as well, and I would love to have you add on to it, is it is multidimensional because we are still humans and all of our systems work together. That even if we understand the brain, we still need to work on nervous system regulation, which we've talked about without actually naming it. But there's nervous system regulation. There is emotional um, ways that we need to approach emotions differently in understanding. And feel free to like jump in here as I go through them. Yeah, go on. You're like, yes, and there's understanding the sensory. So I'll let you go on, but there's just so many pieces to it. It's not just a one fix all understanding.
Yes, yes. Expectations are big. Understanding child development in general is really important. Um, and all of these specific pieces for gifted kids. There's asynchronous development, right? In the gifted is really, really important for parents to understand. And that kind of hits on what you're talking about, is just we can forget because of a child could be so incredibly verbal, um, that at 5 years old,
Hmm.
they can talk to you like they're a little adult. And so then we kind of start expecting them to behave like an adult all the time. And so then we forget, but they're still not, their system isn't hasn't matured enough to handle these high sensitivities, and whether that's the tag in their shirt is bothering them, or it's too hot in there, or tired really sets them over, or low blood sugar sets them over the edge, or yes, so the sensory pieces, the auditory pieces, I mean, very sensory, of course, but um so it- it's we have to understand it from all of these pieces and understand the individual in front of us, because the giftedness shows up differently in every individual. And so we still need to really know the child or the adult, whoever, the person, the being in front of us. But, as parents, we really still we can get that basis of understanding. We can get those gifted resources. We can understand it at this intellectual level. And then there is still this unique little human that's in front of you. And how do all of these pieces come together to make this person who they are and have them interact in the world and experience the world? Our interventions will be different according to who that individual is in front of us. One of the things to just throw in there is this idea of being really aware of any outside pressures and influences that you have. I think that can really affect us as adults, as people, and our own stuff, and then how we parent, and our expectations that we put on our kids. Just kind of knowing where those influences are coming from, what pressures you're putting on yourself, uh, and that could be blocking or affecting how you're showing up for the unique individual that is
Mm.
in front of you, their true needs are.
It comes down to that self-awareness. I
Yeah.
feel like everything that we're talking about really is building your skill
Yeah.
of self-awareness.
Mhm. Yeah.
I want to ask you, I actually want to pose it to both of us because I think this will be super fun. What are one or a couple examples of your personal favorite parenting things that you have done
Mm.
with your son that just because you understand him
Yeah.
that other parents may not get, but you get it?
My mind's going a little bit back and forth between, just strategies, and then or something that maybe people wouldn't understand that I do with him.
I think throw something in that is a little curvebally
Mhm.
because I have a couple in my head and they're more curveballs that you just wouldn't normally think about. Oh, you do that with your kid. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I do because I get them.
Right. I think there's so many things that I don't really actually honestly look so much outside of, like, the outside pressures don't really
Mm-mm.
get to me too much. That's just sort of that's my groundedness and so I probably do a lot of things and I don't even
You
realize.
don't even know it.
I mean, something that this isn't so far out there, and I might, warm up to this as I have a minute to think about it. But this isn't like I said, super far out there. But I don't think it's something people think to do, and it's on my mind because I just recently suggested it to someone. But with this population, can be very, very sensitive to tone of voice.
Absolutely.
So, um, so that is a focus, I mean, in general, I'm not like a yeller. I don't have a loud voice, those types of things. And so, but just a tiny tone, right? My son will be like, "Why are you yelling at me?" And I'm thinking, "I'm not yelling. I'm not even close to yelling. Like, do you even know what yelling is?" Right? I actually had to learn to say to him, "I am not yelling at you."
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't yelling, but it was about the content, right? If there was any sort of correction, or that he needed to do something and he could take that as like he was already supposed to, or set perfectionism, all the pieces. So really, like, explicitly saying, I'm not yelling, you're not in trouble, there's not if you're hearing a tone in my voice,
Yes.
maybe I am a little frustrated, or explaining it. So that's one thing, I think. And I guess the more out there thing is what he would do for a little while. He's a little older now, but he would say, "Can you be the mean mommy?" And he wanted me to, like, act out this, like, he wanted me to yell. Like, he wanted to see what it was like. It was almost like I'm trying to make sense of all this because I'm sensitive and I'm hearing this tone and you're telling me that I'm not yelling. And so
Yes.
like now do, and so I, very uncomfortably be like, okay.
Let it rip, Kari.
And like, and we would laugh and stuff, and he kind of like, not sure. I mean, we were in it together, but but that's following his lead and he was trying to figure something out. So that's one thing. So I think that knowing the tone of voice thing is really, really important for this population and helping them decipher. I'm not suggesting be a mean mommy by any means, but
No, I totally get it. It's so funny you say that because it mirrors, especially our oldest. I would be talking, or even if my voice was raised, like you were saying, I am so far from yelling right now,
Mhm.
but it'd be like, you're yelling. It makes me feel so bad.
Yeah.
Then when he got older, he would, can you just tell me you're grounding me? He'd send me to my room and ground me. And I'm like,
You're like, why? What's happening? Why would you do that?
it's really interesting that you say that because it's just like he said it, but I didn't give it too much thought.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you're saying it's kind of, just probably a way of processing what it would feel like
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
to have
understanding the
that.
difference. Like, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And oh, I love that. Any other ones come to mind?
I know. I think I want to hear yours
Oh,
first.
well, mine's totally different. It's not so much like a strategy. It's our boys are um, very similar, but also very different in what they like to do. And our oldest loves horror.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that a lot of gifted are really drawn to that, and I really do think it's a lot of sensory. It's like such a intense sensory, and I'm not talking about like the gory or grotesque, just like even the psychological bit behind it.
Yeah, the
I feel like
complexity
it's
to it.
really a sensory hit for them. So he's drawn to that, and I was raised in a home where like you just don't go close to that with a 10-foot pole, and so I never really explored it. I was just like no, no, no. But it's something that he kept coming back, and he kept telling me about books he was reading or movies that he wanted to see, and I was like, my goodness. And our oldest is a teenager now. So it's like I want to find ways to be able to connect with him. And I don't want my own like thoughts or discomfort to get in the way
Right.
of a connection point with him. So I just threw out to him one day on the way home from school, I was like, I will write you a horror short story. And I said, it will rival what you read. You know? And I have no idea what came over me for me to even
Like, we're gonna do this.
and then just the way I'm wired, I'm like, I'm gonna knock this out of the park. I have no idea how, but I'm gonna knock it out of the park. And so it was kind of interesting the conversation. He's like, I really want this type. I want it psychological.
Okay.
And these are some websites that I feel like you need to look at because if it's worthy, if I'm going to spend my time to read it, I want it to be good. So
No
here
pressure.
are
No pressure.
yeah. So it's like, here are some websites to help you write horror well. So he did research for me, sent it to me. But what was fascinating, Carrie, and I think this is part of I think there is so much untappedness in us because of um, boxes that society or family put us in. It's like you just perform, you do well, these are the paths you're supposed to go on. So here, when I opened myself up to this completely other path, I knocked out this short story in a couple hours, and I loved the writing process.
Wow.
I absolutely loved it, and it was a bit scary how easy it came to me. I was like, should I be concerned that psychological horror came to me?
Changing professions before we know it.
Yeah, but I loved the writing process because it lit me up in a completely different way that I would not have been intellectually stimulated, right? That I would never have explored. And so he read it and he just put it down and he left the room. And I'm like, okay, this is my own inner emotional work. I'm incredibly proud of it, regardless of what he says.
Like, okay, my self-talk,
Yeah,
self-aware.
I am so proud of it. And he came back in and he hit the bed again and he's like, that was so good, Mom. He's like,
Oh,
that was so good. That equals, it rivals what I've been reading. And he loves to write himself. And so
Yeah.
now we are on this joint venture. We are writing a book that we want to self-publish by the end of the year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And
Yeah.
we're writing horror short stories, and we go and we talk about it with each other. What are your ideas? We brainstorm ideas. We have a Google Doc going that's
Yeah.
like, these are our ideas. What do you think about this? And so that was one of those that just came to my mind. It like hit on so many different levels of allowing yourself to open to the interest of your kids.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
may be off-putting, the intensity of it or the topic of it. I think it can be just very surprising that can unlock things in us
Sure.
that we
Yeah.
never explored. And it's been a phenomenal
That's
connection with us.
awesome.
So
That's
yeah, so
yeah, and
that's
that's
what came to my mind.
no, that's a great example, right? Of like just realizing that you didn't know that was going to be on your path, and
Mhm.
you didn't even know you could do it, and but it's and you didn't shut it down and tell him like, oh no, we can't do this topic, or I can't do that, or it's like I'm leaning in and I see you and let's do this together, and it's connective, and yeah, and that is teaching him so many things, right? And he's going to remember that for sure forever.
And I think, like, to your point, it's like leaning in and seeing them. I
Mhm.
do completely different things with our youngest.
Right.
I
Right.
find those points, right, that light him up in a way. He's incredibly physical. I do not love, I am not the physicality that he is, but
Right.
it's like, yeah, let's go throw the baseball for 30 minutes.
Hmm.
And oh, you want it thrown hard? Okay, let me
Yeah.
see how hard. Can I almost hurt your hand in your glove?
Yes.
That's the kind of intensity
Yeah,
he
he
wants.
wants it.
And
Yeah.
so it's like going and just, it's like spending that time, investing that time in things that I necessarily wouldn't, but it does create those points. So,
Yeah. Yeah. My son's really into anime because he's
yes.
art, right? And he loves that.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is not an area that I'm very interested in and or really knew anything about. And so, yes, I know more about it now, and I do see
Absolutely.
it now. I understand, and it's helped me learn about him as I sat down and why we went to the movie together. We watched it, and I
Love
looked
it.
at his drawings, and and then it's like, oh, okay, and starts to help me understand like what he's attracted to and why it works for him,
Fun.
and then he can apply that to other things. And yeah, and I would say we for my son and I too, it has a lot of our little things that we do have a lot to do with kind of social emotional type things, right? Of like people and conversations. There's a lot of um shared understanding of after we've been in a social situation or and those would be
That's in talking.
that's like people watching with your best friend, but allowing that him to share that and express that in his observations and allowing to have more mature conversations than you
Yes,
would expect to have at 10 years old,
absolutely.
right? And following his lead to say like, okay, well, he's already noticing it, I'm not gonna shut it
Hmm.
down because he's not ready for it. He's obviously ready for it. He's the one telling me, right? He's the one observing it. So that would be another example of types of things that we're doing.
Yeah, I will second. It's like those conversations, and I think it also, it's like when they're talking about it, I'm not going to say, well, that's not very kind to not think about that.
Right.
And oftentimes my conversation is, well, I actually noticed that too.
Yes, exactly.
There's nothing wrong. It's what do you do after you notice it? That's where you can talk about it. But admitting of like, oh, I had that thought too,
Yes.
or I felt that way too.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of allowance for our truths, right? Whatever they are, without shifting, controlling, judging,
Mhm.
deciding anything.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of like, yeah, that is a true feeling. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
I saw that. I feel, yeah, I can see why you would think that. I would see why you're starting there. And then a little space. And then later, like, and what are we going to do with that? Or, that type of thing. So, yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Being open, following their lead, and not putting so much pressure on ourselves to follow a path that we thought how it was supposed to be. I mean, I guess
Absolutely.
that's another thing is just, they're going to stretch you. These kids are going to stretch you. Um, they will just like revel in having some autonomy and they're going to teach you. So being open to that teaching path, being both ways, brings a totally different experience,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
joy and richness to your parenting journey, than if you only see it as a top down kind of one way. I'm teaching.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And they have just, and I think I can speak for both of us, they have made us both better human beings, haven't they?
Yes, 100%.
100%. I love it. And I think that's a wonderful place to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kari.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
love our conversations. So
Me
thank
too.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cindy. You know, it always makes me be motivated in some way or think about something in a different way and
Likewise.
re-inspired to
Mhm.
keep all these things at the forefront of our minds and with clients, with kids, I mean,
Absolutely.
my own kid, you know, all of it. So thank you so much.